Welcome everybody to this World Satsanga held on the 18th of December 2021 in conjunction with Kevin Moore and the Moore Show. And again I invite you to join Kevin on his YouTube channel to look at the factual documentary series that he's based upon looking at people with spiritual backgrounds. It's called They Call Us Channelers, and there's a lot of new material on there, so please do go to his channel. Okay, so this is the last of the pre-recorded, so to speak, satsangas. Back in the day we had satsangas that were live on Skype. Skype couldn't cope, and so we went into this pre-recorded thing with answers submitted beforehand. And now from basically January to the end of January, and I'll give you the date at the end of this particular recording, I'll be inviting you all to join via Zoom. Actually, I'll be sending a Zoom invite out on the blog, and it'll be on the website, and those who subscribe by email as well, I'll send that Zoom invite out there as well. I think there's a limited number of people who can dial into a Zoom meeting anyway, so we'll have to see what happens there. But the invitation will just be for the questions and answers session. So questions and answers will be live and will be held via the Zoom messaging service. So I won't be receiving any pre-received questions at all. The lecture I will do beforehand, and that will be recorded. The meditation I'll do as well beforehand, and that'll be recorded. And eventually the recording of both the lecture, the questions and answers, and the meditation will be all stitched together into one file and put onto my YouTube channel. Okay, of course there'll be links to that channel from the website and from those who subscribe via email and those who look at the website and download blogs. Okay, so here's the agenda for today. First one is, why are more and more young people suffering from depression and anxiety? Then we're going to go through the questions, which are all from JM this month, which is fantastic because there's about 10 questions here. And JM is an avid reader and somebody who studies very, very hard the information that comes out of the so far 8 books, soon to be 9, that are published, and he really does look at the information and dig out a lot of questions, which helps other people as well. And the last meditation is a meditation to activate the third eye. Okay, so there's various different ways of doing this. There's one way I use when I'm healing, but we'll do something more simpler in this particular satsanga. Okay, so this issue about depression is actually quite an interesting thing, because I was asked a question by my agent in China about this, and it's we ended up with quite a bit of dialogue. And so what I'm going to do right now is, rather than go through the dialogue, I'm going to take bits of it out and sort of go through it as well, because it's interesting to understand why people do suffer from depression at the moment, specifically the younger people. So the question is about depressive disorder, and it was identified by the World Health Authority as a major health problem, and this specifically because of the high suicide rate associated with it, which is about 15%. And there are more and more people suffering from it, not just in China but all over the world. And the question was, why do people have this disorder, and what is happening on the psycho-spiritual or even the energetic level to somebody who gets this disorder? What's happening? And what I picked up is basically this: that the depression is prevalent in younger people and those up to 40 years of age. And these are the souls who incarnated with higher frequencies, such as the so-called indigo, rainbow, crystal, and the children, and the hybrids of those three together, either indigo and rainbow, indigo and crystal, or rainbow and crystal, and rainbow and indigo, or a mixture of all three, indigo, rainbow and crystal together. And in effect, these souls sort of hoped we would all be operating at a higher frequency level the way we are now, and they expected to be working in a loving and more connected way, especially more connected because they work on a different level. They communicate energetically as well. They expect energetic communication back, and this is why people with like Asperger's or autism they're very limited tempers, or even very attention spans, because they are expecting to have the communication from us that they can give out, and at the end of the day they don't get it, so they get bored very quickly, or frustrated. So they know this subconsciously, but that's we were supposed to be working on a higher level, but don't intellectually. They also understand that we're not at a high level, and therefore people can't communicate with them. But again, subconsciously that's okay, but intellectually or so-called consciously this is different. So, and because they can't understand it, and they can't really understand why they're not getting any feedback, or why they're not feeling this love, or feeling these higher levels of communication, they feel sort of depressed and unloved. They also feel that nobody is talking to them as a result of it, or even paying attention to them, and feeling unwanted. And this feeling of being unwanted is a worldwide problem. So, in effect, what happened to those who lived in the old ages? In the past, such as famous people that have depression, for instance, Hemingway, Lincoln, Churchill, and many others, who are not in the modern time, but also had sort of depression. And I've no doubt there's other individuals who were noted leaders, for example. I mean, so although more and more have disorder due to this reason, they can't be the only reason. But if you look at these people, they're all high-functioning people. People like Marconi, people like Baird, people like Einstein. They're all high-functioning people. And this is a result of high frequency and the ability to be connected whilst not being connected. So these people were the forerunners. They're the forerunners of the indigo children, the rainbow children, the crystal children. But not all patients or depression patients are indigos or crystals or rainbows. But it doesn't matter, because a soul can still be a high frequency soul whilst not being categorised as a rainbow child, etc. For instance, I'm not. I'm not a rainbow child or an indigo child or a crystal child. I just am what I am. That's a different thing altogether. The other reason is a more sociological reason. And that's due to the anonymity that people feel due to being in high population areas. It creates a feeling of being nothing. We're in a very small fish in a very, very big pond. It's but whilst we're in this big pond as a small fish, we want to be something. We want to be noticed. We want to be revered, respected, thought well of, put on a pedestal. So some of this is basically also born from an egotistical problem where the ego, in its isolated way, feeling small, wants to feel big. So how do they become particularly obsessed with suicide? Well, the ego is again the issue here. The ego wants to be the top person, at the centre of attention, expressing or illustrating a mental condition as a way of getting attention. It's almost a fashion now. You can see a lot of younger people who are using, and I'm not saying this is good or bad, they're using the depression as a reason for not doing things. They haven't done this, they haven't done that, or sometimes they're overweight and they say, "Oh, I'm depressed, so I eat." So it's being used as a medium to try and get attention. It's also sometimes being used as an excuse for not attending to one's responsibilities to society and self. And suicide is the extreme end of getting attention, but one that generally goes wrong, as they tend to be caught in, as they want to be caught in the act of suicide and saved, and therefore gain massive amounts of attention. So that they don't really want to get or die through suicide. They just want to use that as a medium or something that's severe enough to gain the attention. So what these people really, really want is to be recognised, to be loved, to be noted, to be respected, and to have people notice that they're there. All they really want is their feelings of being nothing removed, so they can be really noticed. Be somebody who is also, not just revered, but somebody who is noticed and loved, and people communicate with them. So really the issue is here is that the ego is the subconscious in real terms, because we're trying to understand what the subconscious is. And the subconscious is the ego. It's that part of us which is created as a function of our sentience and energy, that which we call the soul, integrating with a physical form, and the physical form being low frequency and the environment being so low frequency, we start to lose our communicative bandwidth, and therefore in losing our communicative bandwidth we ultimately start to lose communication with who and what we are, our higher self, our true energetic soul, our Godhead or our oversoul. All those words mean the same thing. It's that bigger part of us which remains disincarnate. So this ego is created. And again, the ego wants to create a condition where it wants to be noticed as well. So again, the use of depression, or the fact of being depression, and sometimes the fact of going through the thought process of wanting to be suicidal or commit suicide, is again a function of the ego wanting to be noticed. So although from a, shall we say, an interactive perspective, we think that the person themselves are feeling this severe severe anonymity, this severe level of not being recognised, not being seen, not being communicated with, not being noticed. The ego is part of it because it wants to be noticed, it wants to be recognised, it wants to be put on a pedestal, it wants to be something big. So the ego itself is the driving force behind the depression, because it's using the depression as a means of gaining attention, and the subsequent downstream function of that is that there's another way of gaining attention through depression, is to create a condition where you either threaten the act of suicide, or you go through the act of suicide trying to plan so that you're caught, and therefore creates a lot of attention. But the vast majority of individuals don't get caught, and they end up finishing their incarnation. Okay, so this is one of the reasons, well, the main reasons is what I've picked up as to why we're experiencing a lot of depression these days. Because people can be higher frequency, or they can be one of the higher energy individuals, the rainbow, crystal and indigo children, or they can be just trying to gain some sort of attention for themselves. They feel that they're too small, they feel that they are not paid attention to, they're not seen, not observed, not recognised, and this again creates the function of depression, which can also create the possibility of suicide. But the whole thing is based around trying to gain visibility and even energetic visibility through receiving reciprocal communication is also a way of understanding that one is visible. Okay, so that's the bit on depression. It's a bit of I guess for people who are psychologists who are looking at that, they'll probably find it a bit bizarre, because they see it as being almost a medical function, a chemical imbalance in the brain. But there's a lot more to it than that. It is in effect a number of different things that create the condition. But moreover, because it's affecting a lot of the young people are those who are incarnating into what they thought was a far higher frequency environment, where we're all communicating telepathically and empathically and telepathically, and recognise each other and want to help each other and be in service to each other, want to love each other, and then not getting it, they don't receive this reciprocal communication on the level that they get, and of course that causes a problem as well, and the need to try and find some outlet to express what they are, and to get the attention that they feel that they need. Right, let's have a look at the questions, and again these are all from JM, and again JM is very fastidious in reading the books and looking at the data and the information that's there. So these 10 questions are from him. So there's 10 questions here. First question is, in the History of God, Chapter 8, the source entity is explaining how everything was created in perfection to start the job instantly, and that the only changes are what you and your opposite entities have created, including the human physical vehicle side. What is my opposite entity? So these are basically, at the time, what I would now call guide and helpers, and of course other entities that are not in the evolutionary cycle and are in service to the maintenance of the multiversal environment that we use to evolve, and in service to us who are projecting a small aspect of ourselves into the gross physical and other locations within the gross physical universe and frequencies above it, to experience, learn and evolve by experiencing how difficult it is to operate in low frequencies. So these opposite entities are really, the guide, the helpers, and the curators that I now recognise. So at the time of writing that book, I didn't really recognise basically the backup we have when we have our incarnation, and also the level of work that's done in the background to maintain the evolutionary efficiency of the environment that we're in. Okay, so the guide and the helpers and the curators are what we're being classified as being one's opposite entities. Okay, in the History of God, Chapter 13, the source entity states the perfect stars that you see here are the guardians of the universe, the stars that you see in the jet blackness whilst meditating. The SE says that some of these have visited our planet in our frequency. A few have even walked amongst you at your lower level, trying to help to raise your game in the frequency stakes. Are they with you every second of the day, at night? Have you consciously met any of these? Yes, they basically, these are those entities who are managing the maintenance of the earth, not just from the point of view of the curator, but also in how we interact with each other. Because again, aside from the guide and helpers, there are entities that are understanding how the human form can be modified to cope with the change in frequential state that it can't cope with itself. So these are those entities who are maintaining the universe. They're maintaining the possibility of gaining accelerated evolutionary progression through having individualized free will, and maintaining the possibility of the existence and not the destruction of the physical universe. So they are in effect the curators and those entities which we sometimes call the Council of 12 or 144 or whatever it is. There's a council that are working with each of the major frequencies within the universe. There's a council that work with the first 3 frequencies, there's a council that work with the 4th frequency, 5th frequency, 6th frequency, etc. They are there to make sure that everything that's happening is happening in accordance to the desires of us on behalf of the source entity, and how we interact with that environment and each other to experience, learn and evolve on behalf of the source. Okay, and I've experienced some of them. Clearly I experienced quite a lot in the writing of the book, The Curators. So I hope that answers that particular question. Next one, is it possible to be aware of these beings as they're helping us? Can we thank them? I do know of people who are very aware of some of these beings, some of these entities, and specifically the elementals that we call the nature spirits. They are very, very close to us, and I know of a number of individuals, certainly one of the wonderful people who translate the books, Mo, translates the books into Japanese, and she's very connected with nature spirits. Other people are very connected with nature spirits as well. So some can work with them. They can help us out. Generally, they've got the responsibility for the maintenance of of the environment that we're in. Just thank them by meditating and sending them love and thanks. And that's the best way forward in real terms, because they're there to help maintain a structure, not just for us on Earth, but also for the rest of those souls who incarnate into other vehicles within the first three frequencies, and the other vehicles, incarnate vehicles that is, in the other frequencies, the 4th, 5th, 6th, right up until the 12th. Number 4, are they guides for us in addition to the guides all of us already have? Are we indeed surrounded with helpers? We're surrounded by our guide and helpers, clearly. They're there to sort of subconsciously nudge us in the right direction in conjunction with our particular life plan. But these others aren't particularly there for us, or to be guided by us. Sometimes they are there to guide our guides, or they assist our guides, or communicate, or act in communion with our guides. So rather than us ourselves, they would be working in conjunction with maybe our true energetic self, but moreover probably those entities that guide us while we're incarnate. So these entities will be part of the, I suppose, the structure below the Council of 12, so to speak, that are on the gross physical levels. And if we were incarnated into the 4th frequency or the 5th frequency, they would be communicating with that particular council on that particular frequency as well. Next question. When discussing the Great White Light in Chapter 13, the Source Entity says that is the origin, as it was the original recognition of self in the vast area of energy. What is the Great All? The origin came to recognise itself within the vast area. Where did the vast area come from? My understanding is the vastness of structure and energy and all the different levels was there in a raw state. No sentience, no intelligence, no self-awareness, nothing. And then slowly things started to coalesce together, desire to be together in different energetic states, and that created levels of intelligence, and then the energies started to move down the road to sentience and become eventually sentient. But with this, there became another entity, or should I say, a pan-frequential, pan-structural, all-pervading sort of entity called event space that was sentient, but it itself recognised that it wasn't going to achieve the level that another soon to become entity might achieve. So it's created the possibility of manipulating event space itself to allow it to sacrifice itself but not destroy itself totally on behalf of that entity to come, and that entity was the origin. So that's all I know really, and hopefully I shall get more information about that in the book I'm going to write when I finish this book right now. And I'm hoping to finish the Uncreated Creations certainly by the end of February, or maybe even mid-Feb. I'm not too far away now. And then as soon as I've done that, I'll probably have a month's break or so, and I'll go straight into the next book, which is Beyond the Origin, which will be basically beyond the level of knowledge we've currently got of the origin, and maybe a bit beyond what it itself currently understands about itself. Let's see. Next question. Who or what created the vast area in which the origin developed recognition of self? Again, it was still part of that which was there. I don't feel anything was created. I think it was just there. I feel it was just there. I don't have the depth and detail behind anything other than just knowingness that it was just there. Some things just are just there, and for us to, as human beings, to ask why and what and when and how is a natural thing. It's part of our evolutionary progression, but we don't understand. We think there's a start and an end, and there's not. There's just isness, and that isness can have instantaneous understanding or creativity or availability. And in this instance, from the perspective of the development of sentience to create to create event space, and later to create the origin through the help of event space, that which was there that created event space, and maybe other levels of sentience and intelligence that may have continued or demised or decided to work in a different way, or became part of event space, or became part of the origin, basically was just part of that which was there, which was, from my understanding, just energy at various different levels of structure. Okay, next question. In the history of God, in the heart of Earth's sun, the source entity tells us there are entities in the sun who are in constant communication with incarnate entities on Earth, that are able to understand some of the concepts used to create these new elements that allow them to be recreated within the Earth sphere. Are there humans in consciousness, or are they consciously aware that they have communication with these sun beings, the Grahupnik? I seem to remember they're called the Grahupnik. I'm just going to ask the question. Well, I've had the recorder on pause for a bit, so I've been meditating on this. And I'm just picking up that the humans in communication with the Grahupnik basically are doing this on a subconscious level. On an energetic level is probably a better way of saying it. And that they're also doing it in conjunction with their life plan. They've worked with entities, they are there to create certain new things, and they work with their guide and helpers and other entities to be able to support this desire. And so the vast majority, in fact, if not all, of the creative functions that are associated with those entities or beings that are within the sun, the Grahupnik, is based upon the energetic level of communication. And certainly in this instance, there's an indication that they might help with basically the creation of new elements. And these new elements are, I'm just having a look. Iridium is one. Tritium is another. Now these two apparently are available, mineable, but the idea behind it is that we know that they're there, we discover them, we give the possibility of them being there. So when the periodic table was created, it was created very cleverly by not just including those elements that we knew about and their atomic weights, but by including gaps to suggest that there could be other elements that we haven't discovered yet, and they more than likely would have atomic weights associated with where they would be, for example. But I'm also showing that they've also worked on things like titanium, which are very difficult to create. And I'm being told there's going to be another material sometime in the future, which is a metallic material, extremely strong. Its ductility can be changed by basically just attaching it to a device and dialing in the ductility is required. And there's no need to weld it or join it together by riveting or creating any other joints. Basically, if it's almost like you could put them together like the end of a magnet, like a north one side and the south the other side. You can just join them together. These things will join together if given a template of what they're supposed to be and how they're supposed to join together. So it's almost like programming the material to join together in a certain way, programming the material to be as strong or as brittle or as ductile or as resilient as it needs to be. And that's what we're going to get next. But that's some time away yet. Next question is a quote from the History of God. This is me. Me asking the source entity, I thought you knew everything about everything. And the source entity laughed and said, no, that's why you are all here now. So the question is here, is everything I experience new and previously unknown to our source entity? It's not about everything we're experiencing being new, it's the way we experience it in our Guy-ness or JM-ness or MO-ness or FN-ness or US-ness. You know, we are experiencing it in a different way, and it's the diversity of experience which is what gives the depth of knowledge and depth of experience to the source entity. So it's not so much that what we're experiencing is brand new, it's how we're experiencing it and how we're interacting with it and the circumstances we're interacting with it and that environment within which the circumstance and the interaction is happening. So from that perspective, everything that JM does is new, but isn't new, because everything happens concurrently, don't forget. Everything is available to the source in event space. So even though we are experiencing it now, we've already experienced it and we will experience it. I hope that helps. Next question. Is all of my experiencing valuable to the source entity and to the origin? Everything I think and do. Yes, everything. Everything we do creates a depth of knowledge, depths of experiential understanding, and an increase in evolutionary progression and depth of evolution progression. Everything you do, everything I do, everything all the listeners or the readers are doing now creates a possibility of evolution, a depth of evolution, or evolutionary content, if you want to call it that. It's all valuable. Okay. So the last question. The source entity says that there are approximately 4,115. So I'll start again. 415. I got my decimal place wrong. The source entity says there are approximately 415 races of sentient beings that have free will, singularly or collectively. How on earth, Grin, can our source entity be in contact and aware with all the individuals in these 415,000 races of beings? This blows my mind. We don't understand polyomniscience and poly self-awareness, polyomnipresence, because everything that is sentient is a function of the source's sentience. So the source just needs to change its focus from being on one particular point of sentience to being on all sentience, and it can experience everything concurrently and understand everything concurrently, because its sentience is so vast that irrespective of what we do, it's absorbed and understood straight away. It's difficult for us in the human state to be able to understand how we could understand more than just ourselves. We couldn't, rather understand something that our neighbour does totally, that our partner does totally, that our children do totally, that our work colleagues do totally. We can't do that because we're in a position where we're so low frequency that we have to do things in a linear way. 2 follows 1, 3 follows 2, 4 follows 3. We do it that way. We can do some parallel processing, some parallel thought processes, but eventually we end up focusing on one thing. Whereas the source is like us focusing on all for instance, the leptons, the quarks, the striations and charm, and understanding what they're all doing at the same time. It can do that because of its sentience. It has sentient volume, sentient density, and that sentience has a high quality level as well, and that means it can process everything concurrently. That's the way to think of it. Okay. Well, that's all the questions, and it's quite a good series of questions. I'm pleased about that. It's a good one to end the old way of moving forwards. And actually, the end of this year is basically 10 years of World Satsanga. So it's going to be an interesting, because we're moving into the next era of World Satsangas, and at the same time US and myself are going to start working on editing those 10 years and create a book which will probably be called The World Satsanga, The First 10 Years. And that'll hopefully, it'll need to be pared down a lot, an awful lot, but hopefully the information that comes out will be supplementary to, additional to, or augment, or be different to the information that's in the books that I've been fortunate and honoured to be able to commit to a meditative and channeled based dialogue with the different entities I've been working with. So let's finish the Satsanga with the traditional meditation, and in this instance is to open the spiritual or third eye. Okay, so let's do as we normally do. Let's sit still in our straight backed chair with our palms uppermost and our upper thighs. Our eyes should be closed and gently focused on the origin of the spiritual or third eye, which is in between the eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. And I want you to just consider that you have this thing called the pineal gland. A walnut-sized shaped gland, physical, that is just the other side of the skull in the brain. It has its own physical function, but it's also a physical link between the energetic function that we have as a function of our 7 energy templates working concurrently to allow the soul to animate the body and to navigate around the gross physical environment it finds itself in. I have a number of different ways of opening the third eye, spiritual third eye, but this one is a really simple one. Just imagine or visualize that there are 7 layers of skin. Okay? Each of the 7 energy templates can be considered to be a layer of skin. Now these things all function together. Each of them has an aspect of the spiritual or third eye associated with it. Every part of our body is represented by some part of the energy template associated with each of the 7 levels. Okay. I want you to see that the spiritual or third eye on each of these templates, think of it like let's think of it in 2D, 2 dimensions. Okay, we have height and width, or length and width, better way of saying it. The energy templates are 3-dimensional, in so much as they have volume. Not 3-dimensional as in the structure of the multiverse, but 3 dimensions that create volume. But that's probably a bit difficult to visualize. So let's just visualize them in 2 dimensions, length and width. Okay. The lack of function of the third eye in each of these energy templates is represented by a hole, i.e. the third eye isn't there. So what we're going to do is to recreate or repair that aspect of the energy template that represents the third eye on each of those different levels. So let's consider the first level. The first level can be on the outside of the body, and each consecutive level goes further and further in. Let's just think of it at that level. So think of it like darning or repairing a fish net, where you're repairing all the lines that are horizontal and all the lines that are vertical. So just recreate, just use your visualization or your mentally spoken word to achieve the same thing. Just know that there's a hole there and that gap needs to be filled, rather like darning. Okay, in the days where we used to repair our socks. Okay. Repair all the horizontal lines. Replace them or just visualize them being there, and repair all the vertical lines. Just visualize them being there. And that's the first level. And just know that that area is basically the size and shape of the spiritual or third eye, a functioning third eye on the first energy level. Now let's do the second level. Again, just visualize yourself, or just know that you're on the second frequency, the one that is manifesting the second energy template. And again, see or know there's a hole there which represents where the third eye should be. And just repair the gaps between the vertical lines of this template and the horizontal lines of this template. Okay, so now you've got the second energy template finished, all the horizontal lines and all the vertical lines. And just notice this, you're starting to get a little bit of depth of appearance. Now if you want to visualize the third eye as an eye, as a physical eye, you can do. If you want to visualize this pineal gland, whatever it is, this walnut sized gland as a gland that represents the third eye, you can do. It doesn't really matter. What matters is the intention or the desire to create a condition where the third eye works. And going through the reconstruction of the third eye in each of the energy templates, creates all the connections we need to start to use it again. So let's feel ourselves going to the third level. Again, you'll see a hole where the third eye should be. And again, I want you to repair or create, use your intention to recreate all the vertical and all the horizontal lines. And again, you'll start to see more depth as to what the third eye should look like, because you've got the gross physical energy templates repaired now. Things are starting to look like they're solid. Let's move to the 4th level. Okay. And again, use your intention, mentally spoken word or your visualization to repair all the vertical and all the horizontal lines on this 4th level. So the hole that's there in the energy template where the spiritual or third eye was now is repaired, and this eye starts to have substance to it now. Okay, let's go to the 5th level then. Okay, the 5th level again has a hole there. Just feel you're on the 5th level, the 5th energy template level. Those of you who've previously opened your chakras to go to this 5th level, you can continue to do so. I didn't mention it at the start, but I sort of thought that those who use the chakras to go to the 5th level, or 4th level, or 3rd, or 2nd, or 1st, would have done it naturally anyway. So again, on the 5th level, there's a hole there where the spiritual third eye is. Just repair the vertical and the horizontal lines of the energy template so that it starts to look like there's an eye there, a third eye. Now let's go to the 6th level. Again, just visualize that you've moved to the 6th energy template, and again there's a hole there. As we've done with the previous levels, just start to fill the gaps where the vertical and horizontal lines would be, where there's now a gap where the third eye should be. And you've almost got a fully functioning third eye. Nearly there, just need it at the 7th level in a moment. I'll let you repair or recreate the vertical and horizontal lines on the energy template on this 6th level. And then finally, just know, mentally speak, visualize the fact that you can see the last of the energy template, the 7th. And again, you'll see a hole there where there should be a third eye. And again, use your intention, your mentally spoken words or your visualization to see that hole and to again repair the vertical and the horizontal lines in that area. And so now you should be able to see or perceive or know that there's a spiritual or third eye there. If you've got visualization, the image in your mind's eye should be that of a human being with a third eye in the center of the front of the forehead. Just see it there. Now, the spiritual third eye being there on its own is not really useful. It needs to be calibrated. And the calibration I use when I'm doing it in healing is basically to visualize being or having access to that third eye, and then just adjusting the focus so everything looks sharp and crisp. And then also visualizing or using your mentally spoken word to create a save button or a tick box that says save. That's like focus. Depth of field I do similar to tuning into a radio station, where I've got a signal strength meter. So I choose and rotate the knob to tune into a particular radio station. The signal strength pointer goes into the red area and then goes positive or negative. So it moves away from the centre to the right if it's positive, if it's going too far up. If it's going too far down, it goes to the left. So just get this needle to be in the middle. Visualize a series of sort of goalposts above and below, plus or minus, where the middle bit in the centre of this dial is the perfect depth of vision. And again, just visualize or use a switch to save it. Use a tick box to save it. And therefore the spiritual or third eye is not just a raw component of our energetic beingness within the physical, it's also a functioning one. So now you have a fully functioning spiritual or third eye. The third eye doesn't deal with just visualization. It deals with clairsentience, which is knowingness, clairvoyance, which is seeingness, and clairaudience, which is hearing, and of course intuition, which is knowingness. So it's a part of us that deals with quite a broad band way of communicating with that which is in the higher frequencies where we normally exist. So it's not just about seeing things, it's about hearing things and knowing things as well. Sometimes people see things in conjunction with their physical eyes, but it's more often it's in the mind's eye, or the mind's ear, or state of knowingness. So all those functions are attributable to the third eye. So you can slowly come back into the room that you're in. Slowly open your eyes, and if you've got any water, help yourself to some of that water to help ground you. And that's the end of this last of the pre-recorded World Satsangas. Looking forward to interacting with you via Zoom in January 2022, and I shall be sending out the Zoom invitations on the blog and on the website and by email to those who subscribe by email. Have a wonderful New Year and Christmas. Let's hope it's going to be better as we get more and more used to this new variant of COVID-19, etc., etc., and we start to realise that the body is very, very powerful in its healing methods. And we give those who've departed via the COVID-19 love, and looking forward to interacting with you next year. So, Source's love to you all, God's love to you all, and Namaste. Did you see the aliens in Crete?